Hey everybody, sorry for the late start, but we got a great webinar for you today. We're here with Timo Rain from Pipedrive and myself, Max Ouchler, CEO of Sales Hacker Inc. And we're going to talk about mastering the sales pipeline, 5 ways to focus better, to close better. And Timo runs a company called Pipedrive. It's a very visual CRM. We actually, one of the first customers, I think, at Udemy, 2012 maybe. Is that a good time frame? Was it 2012, you think?
Yeah, I think it was, Max, around that time.
Something like that. Cool. So co-founder and president of Pipedrive, Timo Rain, 15 years experience in sales management, and entrepreneurship. And let's dive into it, Timo. So tell us a little bit about yourself, the company, and what we're talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll first of all, thank you for having us in the show, and I think you're doing a really good job having these people and topics up. So we have the title of Mastering the Sales Pipeline, so we're going to talk about with you about how to close better, basically, by focusing better. And I'd first give a little bit of background about myself. Hopefully I can get this next slide coming up here. So my personal background first, I was born in Soviet Union, actually. I was a sort of pioneer and scout when the perestroika time was around, so most people probably don't remember that. I majored in psychology in university and worked as a recruiter for about 4 years after that, and then started building with 2 other guys a sales training company and did really well. Then we, the other guy that actually ended up founding Pipedrive together, we also sold books door to door in US. And yes, in 2010 we founded Pipedrive. Personally, for me, I did move 5,000 miles west in 2013 to US. I was the CEO of the company for the first 5 years and now a president. What we do with Pipedrive is we help small businesses control complex sales processes, and we've been able to build a tool that a lot of the sales teams around the world love to use, which has been the goal and the mission of ours from the first moment. And we do serve more than 30,000 customers in more than 150 countries, employ about 170 people currently, and love what we're doing, and like I said, happy to be a part of it.
Awesome. Well, let's dive right in then. So tell us a little bit about your take on the sales pipeline, and how it's different from other things, and then we can dive right into the meat of the content real quick and start having a conversation. And we'll field some questions from the audience as we go. So if you have any questions, make sure to ask in the chat or on Twitter at #SHWebinar, and then the recording of this will be posted later in the week. So make sure you ask your questions. It's going to be interactive and engaging. We've got Timo here who's got a lot of experience, so make sure to take advantage of it. But I'll let you take it away from here, Timo.
Sure, and the first thing, I expect you to also have questions of your own so that we can have a flowing conversation, but I also wanted to start with defining the very first definition that we use here, which is sales pipeline. I do look at this as what it can be. I mean, in sales, people, they normally do have some version of a definition of that, and I've seen that it can be a picture of your tested step-by-step path to a sales result that is successful, which is a sale made, and it can also be referred to as all your deals that you're currently working on in order to close them, and it can be both, but it kind of means one or the other for some people as well. I look at this, and when I think of sales pipeline and what you need to master, I think you need to have both things in here to do really well. So that's the concept. That's also been part of our lives and as salespeople, and also as we've been building Pipedrive as a company, which is really the tool for salespeople to close better. And I wanted to at least address a few things here today, which make not only selling but closing deals a challenge. And mainly because of one little thing, which is a biological problem, which makes us human, which is the fact that, as human beings, we fail to keep our attention and the right things all the time. We are not machines. If we think of machines as computers, when they don't do the things that they should be doing, which are the right things that they should be doing, we think that they are broken. If it's a software, we think it has a bug, so we try to fix it. And as human beings, we kind of I think we look at ourselves a little bit differently, but basically it's the same thing. We all know when we are focused and what can happen then, how productive we are. And we also do know what happens when we're not focused and how much everything tends to be all over the place and how quickly we can lose any confidence that we've had. And what I just wanted to say here is that we all battle with that sort of biological problem because we take in so many signals from the world, especially as the technology now puts us even more signals and messages in front of us. So we have to fight through a lot of them. And in sales, I think we're hit with that even more because at the end of the day, what we want to do is see the signals from prospects and see the signs that some deals are getting closer to the close. So it's very, very difficult to keep our focus on our plan, on our actions, which actually are the only things that I can control. I just wanted to point out the biological problem that we deal with.
Yeah, I definitely think that's why, kind of this new age of sales specialization between sales development and account executives is really coming in pretty big, keeping your attention, keeping your focus, kind of narrowing the job and making sure you do one thing really well or a couple things really well instead of like the entire gamut of sales. And so, it definitely helps everybody keep that focus more. I speak to companies all the time who are building products for salespeople, and they're like, oh, yeah, check out this app. And I'm like, hold on, wait a second. You can't tell salespeople to log into a new app. I mean, you live in CRM and you live in email and phone. There's nothing else. It has to be a Chrome extension or it has to be baked into those things, really well. Otherwise, it's just never going to be adopted. And you really see companies that just do standalone apps, working very well. A lot of these new companies are, Chrome extensions, for example, or apps on the App Exchange or, Google Apps or Outlook apps or things like that. So totally agree with you about, keeping your attention, keeping your focus. So let's get into the 5 ways to focus and close better.
Yeah, love to do that. Just one thing I remembered while we were discussing. I mean, the very thing which we have to deal with, which is that we fail to keep focus and fail to keep attention on the right things. I think sales pipeline is a concept, something like that in sales, which is effectively the center of your sales effort pretty much. I think why this helps is that really helps you to put your attention on the right things, what it is that you need to do. It helps you forecast best. I've seen that over the years. That's my observation, that what sort of sales results there will be. And also it just puts you in a place where you can see whether you're on track. It gives you confidence and also points you to the areas of improvement that you can do. So that's why these two things for me, pipeline, and inability to focus all the time just go together well. But yeah, let's talk about things that can help. Give you 5 ways that we that can look at. One, I think everybody in sales at one point does this sort of a calculation, which is, so how much do I need to sell to make a sort of respectable salary and commissions, right? So I think it starts from there, and it's just something that you need to know what it is that you want in terms of money, in terms of products sold or services sold, and then it's all about how you can work backwards from there and get to a monthly result, a week result, whatever makes sense in the business, and I think that is sort of a calculation which I've seen that some companies, some people also fail to do. It's a little bit of math, not a whole lot, but we have so many demands and burdens, and sometimes we just think, okay, we need to get to that result, and I just need to do anything that I can now. But I think it makes sense to take the time and actually do a little bit of the math. So one thing which has been always really good for helping people focus is that to know what are the steps that you need to take that get you to a sale. So if you take an average sale, you can think of what did I do, what do I normally do to actually make that sale, and then we can calculate, how many sales we need, per week, per month to actually get to that end result, right? So, if you put these numbers to your key actions and steps, and you have them per week, a day, what you've achieved is you've literally translated the result goals that you have, which you don't have any control over, to your weekly or daily schedule, which you now have, full control over because you're looking at your action. And, and that is, to me, that is like the holy grail of keeping focus. There's so many things going on, but if you fail to execute that, you're pretty much failing to execute the securest or most guaranteed path to a sales result. So that's the one.
So you're compartmentalizing the process and, putting a number to each part of that process?
Yeah, basically, if you know that, for example, you need to make 10 sales a month to get to the, the result that you want at the end of the quarter, a year, or just for the month, then just coming up with what are the steps for any specific sale, any particular average sale that you need to do, and then figuring out, okay, for 10 sales I need to do then how many, times 10. If it's like for one sale I need to do reaching out, making calls, getting a meeting, discovering the needs and presenting the offering and then negotiating, then just knowing that you're going to drop obviously a number of these deals along the way because, some people don't want to talk to you. Some people you don't just click with. Some people you speak with and they just don't like the presentation, whatever you're selling. And some people can't, get on terms with the pricing and whatnot. So, calculating that loss into this and then knowing that this is my effort, this is what I need to do. I think it's just everything starts from there. I don't think it's about hard work, but you need to put in the numbers so that you can get yourself in a position where you can be really smart.
Yeah, we're salespeople are coin operated, so, numbers are something we should know pretty well. Cool. Everybody feel free to chime in with your questions. We can go one by one. But let's move on to the next one.
Absolutely. The second one, it's all about, I think, distractions. When you know your goal and you know your schedule, then I think the key there is figuring out what it is that you need to react to, because it's easy. All of us, I think, in this situation here, everybody knows what it means to have an inbox, to have an instant messenger. And what it does is basically puts you in such a reactive place that you could easily spend your day and then realize that, oh, it wasn't my day. It was the day of reacting to everybody else around me. And it's really difficult in sales to sort of, guarantee that you can get things done and you can fill your pipeline with enough leads and move forward if you fail to act on your schedule. So I think figuring out what it is that you need to react to is key. One of the things I've always liked is that when you have a system, then reacting within your system is much better. Like, that, okay, I need to make that many calls. I need to get at least 3 or 5 presentations out, every week. Then you need to react to, okay, one of my prospects just replied and I need to get back to them really quick because they are within my system, right? But you also have so many different requests, and the question is whether you go kind of crazy then trying to deal with everything. This is where the losing focus, I think, starts to happen. So distraction will catch you, and I think it's just the job of us to make it really tough for these distractions to catch you. And reacting to key actions is crucial, and I think pipeline.
Do you have the reps structure their days in? Okay, so in the morning for an hour you do this, then you do this, then you do this. Do you do any kind of scrum where it's like, we do the half-hour stand-ups, or you do kind of half-hour sprints of work or hour sprints of work, and then you take like a break? There are a lot of different kind of ways to look at how the sales teams work? I mean, this is for both product, sales, everyone. This goes, translates across the board. So what do you guys do at Pipedrive? What have you seen that works?
Pretty much the things that you just described is knowing what it is that you need to achieve, putting these things in a calendar first, and then giving you the chance to be reactive in the middle of the things that you need to do, but not being in a total reactive mode. I've seen that people are best when they are sort of on a roll, and I see that people get to be on a roll when you do similar things in a row. Like, for example, it's much better, based on my observation, to have, you do your 10 or 20 calls, in a row, in bulk, either in the morning or evening, depending on how you feel like and what your body tells you when you're best, and then get to other things rather than trying to fit these calls in between the things that you do. Then you never get to be on a roll, and you can't use this effect of accumulating confidence, if you know what I mean. So yeah, definitely using the sort of blocks of times where you do similar things in a row. You have maybe 2 presentations that you need to prepare, then do them in a row. Maybe you have 2 meetings in a row. You can do that, or 3, whatever the numbers are. But I think we need to know how to play this instrument called human being, and we get better when we are worn and when we do things in a row. But obviously, then we switch to other things within the day.
We have a question asking about, does this mean that you have to identify all these things that distract you during the day, or does it mean you have to identify kind of triggers that happen in my schedule that I should decide what my actions should be? So, for example, like, obviously, you shouldn't have Facebook on, maybe Slack is a part of that if it's, external. But are there things that you're kind of identifying that are not, you're like no-nos, and you're like list of like, okay, I gotta turn these things off, and then how do you do that? How do you figure that out?
You mentioned a couple of tools. There are so many tools in the world of ours which are made, which are designed with you in mind and you being bored, or you not having enough things to do, right? So that, they notify you about things which might be great for you to do right now. But the problem is that if you have your own plan, then they will become a distraction, obviously. A great distraction, because they are geared to get your attention. So I would definitely be very critical about tools that distract you, and then not using them for the time that you want to be productive, because you can always get to that. At the end of the day, you can do the lunch break the way you want to, and really free your mind and clear your mind from the actual work that you did. Could work. So it depends very much on how you feel, how you get distracted. Some people claim that they can do all these sort of things. I honestly don't think that's true. Multitasking and all. I still see that, when you want to focus, you need to take one thing and do it, and then another thing and do it. So that's the one side. But the other thing is, yes, figuring out what you need to react to within your system. Somehow you have to be able to see the emails, but I would still even, think that is there a harm in me, receiving one email or reading one email like 1 hour or 2 hours later? Or just when it just pops into my inbox, especially when it's a conversation that we've been having. And I think, just moving yourself throughout the day so that, okay, now from 10 to 12 a.m., 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., I'm going to have just my call window. I'm going to do the calls. I'm not going to take anything else that's going to distract me. I'm going to probably produce the best result of meetings or whatever I was trying to set up. And then at 12, I can have a 30-minute just going through my inbox and trying to see if this, somebody has written in with, from the pipeline, and I want to address that or plan that, response. Sometimes you don't even want to address that immediately, but just plan that for the, later of the day or even tomorrow, whatever. So I think.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on tools like Slack and Asana and things like that? You get scheduled to do things, or people tell you, it's kind of like real time, right? So isn't that reactive? And a lot of these companies are making these, mandatory internal tools.
I know, and they're really good in making sure that your your teammates can reach you at any given point. So it does come to me at least, down to what it is that distracts you. And if you see that you have a Slack and you're there and you love it because you can quickly get in touch with anybody and people can reach you, then still, if you know that if that is open and you get the notifications all the time and you feel that you get distracted, it takes you a lot more time to do the things that you want to do, I'd close that for exactly the same period of time, or just turn yourself away so that you don't get the notifications one way or the other. You technically figure it out, and then you're going to get back. It's just something that you need to try and see how much more you can be productive. But the point is, no salesperson will get paid really because they were extremely reachable by the teammates all the time, all throughout the day. We only get paid as salespeople because we were able to close deals and bring in commission. That's how it works.
Okay. We got another question here. Sure. Tips on productive outreach workflow, focused contact strategy. So let me turn that into like a full sentence here. When you're going through your workflow as a sales rep, are you bucketing things into, okay, this is my time for research. This is my time. I'm going to do social LinkedIn research here. This is my time for my phone calls. I'm bucketing all my phone calls into a certain area of the day. What do you do if the person on the other end isn't available in your buckets? How does that work?
Good question. That always happens. My observation is that you will eventually get through people. You want to plan around at least sometimes that you're going to get from your prospects, especially as they get to the later stages in your pipeline, and you are negotiating the deals with them, and you have very important meetings with not only that person that you were selling to, but they're going to involve more people along the way. You definitely want to make sure that you have flexibility there, with setting up times, for example. But even then, it is massively better when you've looked at your calendar a week ahead or 2 weeks ahead, and you kind of blocked out the times that you want to do certain things. Like, which times I have for meetings. Hypothetically, you're going to look at your next week. I have lots of time for meetings. And I know because that works best for me so that I can continue being focused and doing everything I need to do. And at the same time, I can also react to and figure out what's the best time, for meeting or getting together with somebody. You can, throw in times that you have exactly from these blocks. I've seen it burns everybody much more when you just, clear the whole calendar, cancel everything that you have going on, and you just, try to hold on to something which especially is big. It might feel very right because you're really focused on like putting everything in to get that deal. So many people have also experiences where you work and work and work for a week or two with that deal in mind because it's so big and important, and it doesn't come through. And then you realize, I just didn't do anything else.
Yeah. Do you use a calendar app or one of those new bots?
No, I've most of the time I personally just use the calendar, make sure that I have the right blocks there. So you can have events in a calendar which have shared with anybody, but you have kind of like sort of ghost events, if you know what I mean. And then make them real as you agree with people.
Yeah, like a little hold or tentatively, and then or you can do like ghost time blocks, or like a lighter color on your calendar.
Exactly.
Like that.
Maybe there's an app. Maybe there's an app out there that kind of already does that a little bit. But
I always do. Yeah, I always knew my hot and cold times and like when I would want to get on a call and how I can block them together and things like that.
You brought up the question, which was what do you do when you can't reach these people at the time that you want to reach them? That's always been the question. Is like, some people say that you can't reach certain people, especially if they're CEOs and, people with busy calendars, when you call them like between, I don't know, like from, 9 to 11 because it's the most popular meeting time for anybody in the company. And then, then there's a lunchtime, you can't call them. And then there's after lunch, they probably also try to do some work. It's difficult. Then 4 to 6, some people might have a window of leaving already because of traffic. you eventually might get, and I want to address that later on, you might get to the point where you fool yourself, to the point where there's no time for me to actually catch these people when I just listen to what they're doing. So you need to take your shot and believe that you can get through when you try and want to. I've seen that happen. I've seen that some people are able to catch people very early on, 8, 9, no problem. Later on, 4, 6 p.m., not a problem. Very good calls. It's a lot about what we believe we can do, and not just hearing and listening to one person who says that they don't have any time to work with me. The reason why they say that might be because they don't want to. Not because they don't have time.
Cool. Let's move on to being a brutal disqualifier.
Yes. I think for me, the starting point of sales is that you know your potential and eventual customer. You've experienced a transaction, and even if you haven't, you will probably pretty quickly get to that. That you have a customer. Then it's about learning who that potential customer is and how, like I said before, how did you get there? And also, how does this potential customer behave along the way when you first reach out to them, when you meet with them, when you discuss? You will discover that there are certain patterns. They have their internal processes. The problem is that we quite often let this process within, we're just taking one single prospect and the process that we have going with them. We let this slow down. We let this sort of false politeness come in. And what that does at the end of the day is that you are working with, yes, a lot of deals which are still winnable, but you also work with a lot that could be called as a standing matter in your pipeline. And that is a big waste of time, not only for you, but also for people who want to be polite with you, as because you call them every now and then, and you still think that there's something going on with them, and they don't want to kind of harshly tell you something. They can also tell you that maybe we can talk like in two weeks. So that is really a bad thing, which is essentially you're focusing on the wrong things, if you know what I mean. So I think the starting point can make a big difference. So if you start with more than 50% of the deals that I work in have to be winnable, you will give yourself a much better chance to focus. Now, it's easier said than done. Like 50% is a pretty good ratio. You won't get that ratio probably at the end, but when you have the standard, what happens is that you start asking questions about a deal which has been slowing down, for example, in a pipeline. I have an example from way back when we had a sales team and we tried to sell sales training programs to different companies around the world, really. And then I had one sales guy in the team who had like 10 potential deals in a pipeline that all looked very good. The problem was that we had the same story kind of every week and every month. And at one point we got so fed up, and he was fed up, but he didn't know what to do. So we just, decided that, hey, let's have you reach out to all of them, but now with a question of, just let me know. We've been working with this. Please tell me if you see yourself buying this service within this month, if it was the beginning of the month, or next month. And let's see what the reaction is, but really try to be honest with what it is that we're trying to achieve, because we started that process with that in mind. And what happened was that he came back with, I think, 9 out of these 10 said that no, they don't see themselves, buying that within this month or the next month. And he was able to move these deals away from pipeline and started filling, the pipeline with new ones. He didn't carry that sort of standing matter anymore. He didn't focus on them. He didn't worry about these things. He didn't sort of try to think what could be the best approaches. And that's a big thing, I think, as far as focusing and closing better goes on. So this is just one example of what you can do. But the point is that you got to be quite brutal disqualifying deals which are actually not deals anymore. And it requires that you open up a very honest dialogue every point of the way, and it's something that you can learn as you go forward, obviously. But that's the point.
Yeah, we got a question here. How do you balance being a Buddha disqualifier with finding your customers' real problems? You get one objection. You could fool yourself into disqualifying a customer because it's too hard to dig deeper to find the real issue. So balancing being the disqualifier with, getting to the root of their problems and not taking that kind of like first surface answer, obviously, and just saying, okay, be too quick to disqualify them. I'm with you. I believe that, a major part of the SDR's job is to be a bouncer, to decide who gets into the pipeline, who doesn't, and that's part of being a disqualifier. But you need to do that in a way where you're really finding out the real issues. You can ask somebody a question, and if you're those little kids are like, why?
Yeah.
You get to the answer. You ask why enough, you'll get the real answer. You get the surface answer the first time, but by the third time, you're getting like the real answer. So how do you balance being that Buddha disqualifier with finding that real problem and not being too quick to judge?
Well, I think that's, you gave pretty much, we can learn that from kids. I think one thing that kids are going for them is that they're sincere in this why. They just don't do it because this is the technique. In sales, we quite often start to learn, sales techniques and what it is that we can do to make people buy, as if we could really make them buy. So I think going back to the roots of ours and being, sincerely interested and asking the sort of why questions, for me, this is the key. So, for example, when you have people saying that, okay, that was great presentation, let us now think about it and we'll get back to you on this, definitely. That's something that probably every sales team, every salesperson is here, as we go through the career. Well, the point is that you can kind of let it go and say, oh, great, yes, sure, and then be very happy that they're going to reach out and you're going to hear from them because you have a good feeling, you had a really good presentation, you're happy about what you did. But you could also go to this point that you made, ask, something very sincere. It's like, absolutely. If you don't mind telling me what it is that you mostly want to think about as we went through all the things that you wanted to. And you can ask, and people are very open with people who are sort of sincerely curious. So, this is one example, but you can have many others. It's like when you feel that somebody is kind of, how can I put it, hesitant in taking things to the next step in the sales process. And sometimes you feel that. When you're in sales, you start to feel things when you work with people, that you can see that they are kind of, okay, yeah, we could do it, but maybe we can do it like in a month. You can always act like, listen, is it something that you want to work with? Because I sense when we started that you said that's interesting. Is it still interesting for you? Do you still want to explore this opportunity further and see whether this is something you want to purchase and whether this is something you want to go on with? And sometimes people then open up. You're going to hear something completely different that you didn't even think you're going to hear. But what it does is it gives you an insight. Some people will tell you, yeah, listen, I think it's not really the most, burning priority right now. It's great, but I'd rather really, reschedule something for the later. But right now we don't have the burning need. And then you can also start asking questions like why, and because there's something probably in the beginning that got you to this point, and you can figure out whether this was like a completely being people being completely polite all the way through, or maybe there was something and then you did something wrong together, or stuff like that. So for me, it's a dialogue. It's been opening up the dialogue in a way where you really want to understand what's behind this, first question, answer, which makes you feel that things are slowing down.
We got a couple questions here also on this topic. Who disqualifies in the sales process, the sales rep or the SDR? And I guess my answer on that would be both. I think you're constantly, just as much as you're qualifying, you're disqualifying. For example, if a deal cycle goes past, a couple push counters, so people use push counters in Salesforce, or it goes past a couple deal cycles, you're disqualifying that person. This person is continually canceling on you. At some point, you have to cut that and take that deal off the table. You're disqualifying that. You're not going out of your way to do so, but you're looking out for the common patterns. And a lot of this comes with experience and good sales training and sales coaching. But what would be your take on that? They're asking, who's disqualifying, the rep or the SDR?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, but I kind of struggle a little bit with understanding sort of the difference. As if we're referring to a difference here, that maybe one person has more ability to qualify better.
Well, so the account executive or the sales development rep. Sorry, yeah, that's really.
I think that the job of them disqualifying is just slightly different because of the stage that they are sort of disqualifying at, right? So, but I think at the end of the day, it's our job to focus and close deals. It's also our job to make sure that we don't deal with non-winnable deals. So even if it's a starting point, like just start working with deals which doesn't look very good because, the initial interest or whatever is there, or the deals that kind of slow down and we see that they're, not interested, don't have the right needs and stuff like that. For me, it's both, but, in a kind of in a different way. But the good thing about this is that it's a really good mission. It's worrying about whether we are working with something what we want to work with. I think energy that both you as a salesperson and the prospect have is the key here. If you feel that, the energy is not there because you feel that it's not going to probably happen, or you see that actually the other party doesn't feel that we shouldn't be, trying to push each other because we're probably not going to do that anyway.
Mm-hmm. And we'll do the last question on this section because we got to move on. But how do you differentiate the lack of interest in the product versus lack of time? So people, always want to talk later. How do you make sure you're not disqualifying someone who actually just doesn't have the time right now, or is really not interested? You don't want to mistake those two, right? So either they're not interested or they really don't have the time, and you don't want to mistake that, right? You don't want to throw out a good deal.
Yeah, I mean, one good thing, by the way, it takes a bit of guts at the first place, but when you get when you experience that, you can figure out the best way that you can ask this. But just ask this is figure out a way that you can ask this when you sense it. When somebody kind of feels that way, you can probably figure out a way of directly asking it, like, what do you, this obviously we struggle to, set up a time in the near future. Is it because we really don't have the time, or is it because that, this is just not that priority, it's not just not that interesting right now, not that crucial for us to talk about it. When you ask questions like that, you're going to hear not only the answer, but you're going to also hear how people answer. And based on that, you can, I think, have a better sense of what is going on. Some people have crazy schedules. It's not a very nice life to have, but they do have that. They are extremely, operating at many different, things. And so it could be that you're mistaken there. They just don't have the time, or because, they're going to say that, hey, I have a 2-week vacation coming up, and you didn't know that before, or hey, I have a conference that I'm going to attend. Like it's going to take me, a week out of my calendar. I'm coming back. It's another week when I get back on track. Let's please don't do it, during these 2 weeks. But at first, you don't hear this. You only hear that, maybe we can talk next month. And when you hear that maybe we can talk next month, it's always a question mark. Like, what is it, right? Is it that they're not interested? Is it that they really want to talk about it but just don't have time? But I think when you ask like that, you open up a little bit more of a dialogue, and you will have a better sense. So it's difficult to tell. I don't think there's a sort of rule of thumb that is going to give you the exact answer all the time. Just dig in a little bit, ask for an understanding or more clarity about what's going on. It's going to help.
Cool. Let's get into how we can stop fooling ourselves.
Yeah, it's a belief that I hold, and I've seen that to be true, is that not everything that is said is true. And it applies to both us as salespeople, the things that we say to ourselves, and the things that we hear the prospects say to us. So we lie, prospects lie. We don't really do it intentionally, but we end up, because of that, using a lot of time, again, doing the wrong things. So the thing is, challenge your beliefs. One example when we talk about first our beliefs, not what we hear from our prospects or customers, I once asked a question from our team, like, when people say that we want to think about it, and we hear that a lot, how many days do they need to think? And the funny thing was that it was obviously kind of sarcastic question to begin with, but not many people actually detected that tone there. So I heard answers like 5 days. And one other guy said, no, 3 days actually. So the point is that we carry these assumptions in our head that also come into play. With some people, when somebody says, I need to think about it, they act immediately, trying to understand what it is they need to think about, like we talked before. And when you hear that, for example, I need to talk to my supervisor, or I need to talk to the CEO about it. Sure, absolutely. What is it that you want to talk about, and blah blah. And then you also understand when is it that conversation is probably going to happen. And they might say that, no, he's not in today. I'm going to talk to him tomorrow. Oh, okay. So what about we catch up again at the end of the day tomorrow? Would that work? And they're going to say, yeah, that works. And here's your 1 day, right, that they needed to think about, compared to your own assumption that normally it's okay if they think about it for 2 or 3 days, because that's the assumption you have in your head. So we need to be really careful there with our own assumptions, because we fool ourselves. And the other thing is what we just talked about because of the questions. We do hear a lot of these sort of false, polite things, and what that does, it just slows things down. When we talk about disqualifying, it's just making sure that we don't work with deals and with people that we're not going to have a chance to close in the near term. But what fooling does is just we take much more time. We don't spend it wisely, and then when we don't ask for clarity. So there's a lot of benefit when you learn to ask what and see what goes on with your prospects, really. And also that means that you challenge yourself. So, ask for the truth in order to not spend time waiting or cooling things down.
You can be politely persistent. It's not the same as being pushy.
No.
You just got to know. You got to know how to ask.
It's very tricky.
What's up?
Just wanted to point out one thing. It's very not to be pushy, because as soon as you feel the pressure of the crunch time, you feel that you need to close some deals in order to make at least some considerable commission. It's so easy to become a bit too pushy, depending on your personality, obviously, as well, but just because of this outside pressure. So the reason that we're talking today about focusing and keeping attention on the right things is to make sure that you can go throughout the weeks and months almost at a marathon pace, rather than jogging for the first 3 weeks and then picking up the sprint pace during the last week, for example, if it's a monthly commission. Then what happens that during the last week, most prospects will probably feel you being too pushy. So it comes, that sort of aspect comes in as well. It's really important that you give yourself a good amount of time to work at right things, that you feel that you can constantly move deals forward and close more constantly than just at the end of the crunch time.
Yeah, and I think it's so there's a good question here. Where's the line drawn between polite and pushy? And I like to say it's polite persistence. It's not being pushy. It's polite persistence. You want to ask these people the tough questions and get the right answers and get them in your time. But you want to do it in a way where it's delivered in like I'm doing this to help you. I don't want to waste your time. So I don't want to waste my time. If I can get this answer from you, it'll help me. Or hey, somebody's breathing down my neck. I'd really appreciate it if I had an answer on this, so I can just report back to my boss and tell them that things are moving at your pace, and things like that. That are, be transparent. Feel free to you don't have to be a shark. Like, be transparent. Ask them if you can find a way to make it provide value for them. The fact that you're asking these questions, great. Sometimes you play the other side of that. Hey, do me a favor. I need this information, to get my boss off my back or something like that. You can do it either way. but there's ways to do it where it comes off in a polite manner, where they don't feel like they're getting interrogated or, hounded by you, and it's polite persistence. It's not pushiness, but there's a way to do that. And you just need to kind of play with that line sometimes, but also be very polite about it. Just be really upfront, really transparent, really polite. Not transparent to the point where it's like, I'm not going to hit my quota this month if you don't pick up my phone call. But, you need to do what you need to do, and you should be able to have that conversation. And if you're in sales, and you're working your way up in sales, and this is the industry you want to be in, then you should have those kind of people skills that are going to understand what that line is. That comes from a little bit of experience, but it also comes from, your background and how you interact with, other individuals.
Yeah. And wanted to point out two things about mindset, about the very thing and the very question, difference of being pushy and being sort of polite. And, the mindset of both parties having a free will, it's something that we sometimes kind of forgot about, but that's what it's all about. It's, as a prospect, I'm free to decide whatever I want, which people I want to talk to, which problems I want to solve, right? Which solutions I want to look at. And when, both parties are aware of that we are acting only on that, then they can be really open and really honest about, things, like you just pointed out. But, when we kind of let people, how can I put it? When I'm, as a salesperson, trying to be clever, not, saying things as they really are, settling with less than, what is actually the case, then kind of that also encourages people to give the sort of bullshit answers to me. And it's very tough to actually then turn this around. So first of all, the mindset of both are acting and both are in this conversation because of our free will. Then it comes down to the mission that you have. I do believe that sometimes it's not the technique that gives you the best sort of chance there, but just the mission that, my goal is to help people find good solutions to their real problems. And as soon as you feel that you're kind of pushing somebody, then you can ask, listen, there's nothing else that I want to do. I just want to make sure that if you have a real problem, I want to make sure that you feel that there's a good solution, and then you can do that. Are we getting off track here? Maybe we're doing something that we don't want to do, even though we felt that we should be looking at solution. So at any point of the time, you can always refer or sort of get back to the mission that you have. But it also tells you that you need to have that in your head. Some people in sales, they don't feel that there's anything good that they're doing. They feel that they are bugging people. They feel that they have shitty product they need to sell. They're not buying into the job at all. And it's very difficult to be professional and successful that way.
Yeah. So we got a great segue question into the last of the five here. And then we'll thank everyone. We got about 6 minutes left. So what are your thoughts on the emotional nature of sales? My dog is playing on the computer. What are your thoughts on the emotional nature of sales? How do you deal with the lows, and what do you do when you're in that kind of state of, all right, I gotta have thick skin. I gotta get back to it. This goes right into your recharge your energy. So how does somebody recharge their energy while on the job like that?
Well, first of all, I think it's just something we deal with. I have observed that when you anticipate that you're going to have ups and downs because of the job and its nature, you will do better. When you're always kind of shocked that, oh my God, it's so bad now. It was so much better last week. It's so bad now. It's difficult. But the part of job of sales is that one day you're the king of the world, thinking that you can sell to almost anybody, and not the next day, but just the next hour, you could be feeling that you're the worst loser because you just lost one opportunity which you thought you had. So it's just up and down by its nature. And when you anticipate that, I think it's smarter. But the other thing is, when you anticipate that, you will probably also figure out the ways to go through a career like that. So a couple of things I've noticed to be really good is that when you do real work with real focus throughout the day, you need to clear your mind of all that. You need to have moments during the day, mostly, you know, when you're done with the day and you have your free time or your family time or whatever you do, just making sure that you don't carry a lot of that load that you have. It's difficult to get rid of the day when you didn't do a good job. That you weren't focused. Then you feel that it's kind of nagging you. When you did a really good job, you focused, it's easier to let it go and say that I'm going to tackle everything tomorrow. But having this recharge period is really important. I've been in sales organizations where I not only had a schedule for working, but also the schedule for sleeping. And I didn't realize how important that was until I, you know, tested my boundaries and limits and noticed that, yes, if I sleep a little bit less, then I'm going to be really, really tired. It's really hard to focus the next day. So how do you recharge? I mean, for me, the things that you really like to do, you know, when you are not doing the sales, you know, just figure out the way to do them. You're going to download a lot of negative energy that you're carrying within yourself through physical activities, if that's your thing. I've seen that, you know, I like to swim. Swimming always, you know, downloaded so many things with me, so I always got out of it feeling much better. Anything there is. But the point is switching from that head of yours and that all that emotional roller coaster to your body a bit more and feeling what it is to be a human being and do the, you know, simple things. But also
momentum.
And also we kill ourselves by what we by what we eat, by what we drink, all these sort of things. When we're younger, we kind of feel that we can take anything and we will be able, because the body is so strong, we can recharge, you know, regardless of how much we sleep and what sort of a night we had. But as you get older, but also as you do a lot more professional and focused work, you learn to respect the fact that you need to make sure. I mean, listen to any athlete. I mean, they're not only, you know, using, you know, nutrition or you know, eating well and taking care of the body just because they're athletes, but also that they need focus. They need to feel that they have the energy. Quite often when you have sports, you know, players, athletes not doing the best job, it's not because they're tired physically. It's because they didn't have it. They weren't able to bring it, whatever they say, right? The same is in sales, is that you need to fuel yourself and need to have that fuel. But it only happens when you find the ways to recharge and do the things that you like. Take a break from what you're doing.
To get to a little bit of Max's question, you know, one thing I like to do after a bad call, you know, the lows or whatever, bad days. So with the bad call, I like to throw my hands up in the air and do like a victory, like a smile at the ceiling, like victory, or do like the Superman pose, hands on the hips. It'll get you in a better mindset. You got to get out of any negative momentum as fast as possible, have thick skin, brush it off, and go on into the next one. You also, like, on the, you know, on the bad days, when it's a bad day and you can't just smile at the sky, put things in perspective. Have other things that you do that are not your day-to-day sales role that you really like. You know, if you have a dog, go home to your dog. Go home to your family if you have kids and them, you know, and your wife and stuff. Get out, check out completely. Sometimes you need to reset altogether. If you play a sport, you play hockey, go play hockey, you know, go to a movie. Anything you can do to just completely check out and then come back to it later. I mean, the biggest thing you want to do is when you're down, when you're low, you want to snap out of it. You want to disconnect and disrupt that negative momentum. And when you're up, when you're high, object in motion stays in motion. You want to keep that going. Don't take time off when you're high. If it's the 20th day of the month and you've already hit quota and you're in one of those organizations that's, you know, it's like, cool, you're good, you can coast. Don't coast. Keep going. Ride that into the next month. Like, do not stop. You know, if you're on a roll, you know, make sure you ride that positive momentum. And if you're negative, disconnect, cut out, reset, restart. And, you know, sometimes it's going to stick with you for a little bit. That happens. Sometimes you ride some lows. Sometimes you hit some highs. Everybody's career is the same way. You're no different. Don't think that, like, you know, this is a personal vendetta that, you know, the world is taking out on you. This is a business. This is what you're doing. So,
if I may add, one of the last comments is that, you know, with Sales Pipeline, the good thing about it is that you have always the chance to go to the next opportunity. I was in one of the sales organizations when I did door-to-door sales. You know what they had for these really bad moments? They always said that, you know, the solution to any problem you have is behind the next door. meaning that there was no problem that a salesperson experiences that a good sale would not take away. Obviously, we're not going to sell every day and in every occasion, but when you feel that you are doing the steps, you're taking the steps, you're working with some opportunities, and one of them will close in some near time, it will give you confidence. And just turning that corner, it's a major thing. So I really like what you said about it. Just experience yourself being on a roll, experience what it is that it brings, because it will start this sort of very healthy cycle. When you're on a roll, when you're confident, you will sell, I think, exponentially more. People are gonna be influenced by.
People are drawn to those people. They're glowing. They feel inspired by those people. They want to be around those people. You're in a better attitude, so you're nicer. There's like, a karmic energy. We gotta get going though. So let's show off your management ebook real quick, and anybody who has any other questions, ping us on Twitter at #SHWebinar, #SHWebinar. We'll keep answering your questions for you. And Timo, tell us a little bit about the ebook.
We've used our years in sales and the help of our people in a company to put together something which helps people who want to learn more about sales pipeline and how to manage it and how to be really good and professional about it. So you can get your hands on that ebook. Also, when you want to give a tool a try, which would help you managing your complex process and staying on top of your pipeline, then Pipedrive.com and signing up for a free trial is a good start. And when you really dig for content for sales, like we talked about today, but digging into specific areas, blog.pipedrive.com is a good source that we are working on every day. And if you want to personally reach out to me, I'm a difficult person, I think, because of what I do every day, but at least I'll try to do my best, and I think LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to reach out personally.
Awesome. Well, we enjoyed having you and Pipedrive on here. I think we got a couple more planned for later this year. Find me online at MaxAlts, ALTS on Twitter, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Thanks a lot, Timo. That was awesome. Great conversation.
Thank you, Max. Thanks, everybody, for the questions and listening.
All right. See you next time.